not a whole lot of news this week, so we're gonna hop into esports first, and then we'll get into the news. So most esports leagues are going into playoffs. So with League of Legends, we have Team Liquid in first, Cloud9 second, TSM third, FlyQuest fourth, Golden Guardians fifth, Echo Fox sixth, CLG and Optic are seventh, Clutch is ninth, and 100 Thieves is dead last. It's actually really surprising. And then in playoffs, they have TSM and Echo Fox going against each other, and FlyQuest and Golden Guardians going against each other for qualifiers. I believe Team Liquid and Cloud9 are already in. Like, they're just set. And LCS, we have G2 first, Origin second, Fnatic third, Splice fourth, Vitality fifth, SK sixth, Skulks, I still butcher it, seventh, eighth Misfits, Excel ninth, and Rogue in 10th. In playoffs, they already played. Fnatic won their first game of round 1, 3-0 Vitality, and next will be SK Gaming versus Splice. And then in qualifiers, we have Origins versus G2. In LCK, Griffins first, SK Telecom and Kingzone are tied for second. Sandbox Gaming is fourth. Damwon is fifth. Hanwha Life is sixth. Genji and Afrika are seventh. KT is ninth, and Jin Air is 10th. For playoffs, it's to be decided. They haven't done anything yet. In LPL, FunPlus is first. Royals and Invictus and Top Sports are all tied for second. Edward, Team Wii, and JD Gaming are all tied for fifth. Signal Dragons and Billuby Gaming are tied for 8th. Sunning is 10th. LGD, Snake are 11th. Victory and Rogue are 13th. Oh My God is 15th. And Vincent is 16th. And for playoffs, they haven't done anything. In the Overwatch League, because they are also moving on to playoffs, Vancouver and New York Excelsior are the division leaders, so they're top right now. Below them will be Philadelphia and Toronto and Atlanta and San Francisco, and then everyone else is postseason playoff cut, so they didn't make it. In terms of game releases, we are in end of March going into April, so we'll start with April. I guess the most notable releases will be The Walking Dead final season and Assassin's Creed 3 remastered. In April, nothing huge. Shovel Knight, Ace Attorney, nothing super big. In terms of news, Netflix will add Neon Genesis Evangelion on June 21st. Classic anime. The Fortnite World Cup starts on April 13th. Philadelphia Fusion, which is the Overwatch team, has a 50 million arena set to be built in the Philadelphia Sports Complex. Nintendo has plans for a new Switch model this year. Also, Apple Arcade subscription service, which is like you subscribe to their subscription service and you get to play like games on Apple platforms. It's stupid, but everyone's trying. EA had a 4% layoff, and if you're a Twitch Prime member or just a normal Prime member, you can have 12 months of Nintendo Online for free. So moving on to the big topic of this week's episode, we actually do have a guest this week. He is 80% of the Borderlands 2 player base, Mr. TJ Nakano. How you doing, TJ?
Mister, hey, how's it going? I'm glad to be back.
So as we know, PAX East just ended, and the big thing that happened, at least for me, was Borderlands 3's announcement trailer. Before that, however, there was also some other Borderlands news. Did you watch the stream at all, TJ?
Which stream?
The Gearbox Borderlands stream?
Oh, no, I didn't.
So I caught like glimpses of it, and they had a Borderlands card game, which looked very interesting. Yeah, it was like.
This is when the guy started doing the magician.
Yeah. Funny thing about that trick, I think all the cards were signed.
Interesting.
Like already, because if you go back and look at the stream highlights, the first card, you can see it when she places it, and it's already signed.
Interesting.
So I think that kind of ruined that trick. Other than that, Borderlands 1 is getting Game of the Year release date, or Game of the Year edition, with all DLCs.
Remastered.
Yeah, well, it's kind of somewhat. It's like they're updating the graphics.
Yep.
They're adding a Borderlands 2 type mini map.
Oh, okay.
And they are bringing over all the DLCs, and that comes out April 3rd, I believe, which is probably why I haven't received my code now that I think about it. Other than that, nothing with Borderlands 2 that they announced, other than Borderlands 2 VR, which they gave support to like the gun VR controller, and they are adding all the DLCs to VR as well. So if you own VR, I guess that's cool. So anyway, and then they did the whole laggy ass. It was terrible, the announcement. Like, I don't know, like they fucked up the videos. So like the videos were very fucking like choppy. Like the frame rate was really weird. Like it's like 20 or so frames per second, it looked like. Probably not even that smooth, to be honest, because that's like what movies are shot at. But like when we saw the Borderlands 3 trailer, it was super laggy. It was kind of hard. It was sad, but we got the announcement nonetheless. So what do you think of the announcement?
Wait, do they have a date now?
They don't have a date. Apparently maybe there's more news on like there's a Twitter post that there's going to be more news on April 3rd with the release date of the Borderlands Game of the Year edition, but there's no release date.
I mean, I'm excited. Like, I think it's around time for them to actually, come out with the game. It's been about 7 years now, so I'm really excited. Yeah, I looked at the trailer. Everything looks great. I like that the character models have some more expression now. Other than, just their mouths moving, which was the case for the first and second game.
Right.
I also like how they're changing the aesthetics for some of the guns, which was something that I thought was needed for the sort of like different attachments and gun parts for the different weapons that you get, because those matter, but I feel like it wasn't something that really like was capitalized on, and I'm glad to see that they're kind of doing something with that, with like sort of like weird alien tech guns and the ammo count attachments that they have for some of the weapons. So yeah. Also, just I'm really excited for the storyline. Can't wait to see what happens with like the whole like siren kind of backstory with everything.
I think that's like, for me, yeah, that's exactly what I'm probably most excited for. I don't care too much about how much they want to change mechanics or anything like that, but it's the story that interests me the most. I always thought that the siren theme, it played a huge part in Borderlands 2, but it was always super interesting to me how there was always just these 6 powerful, girls, that are just like ridiculously strong. And what was also interesting to me is like we only saw 3 of them, right, in Borderlands 2, which is Lilith, Maya, and Angel. But Angel was artificially made a siren.
Yeah.
And then the other 2, I believe we did hear about before, like through like if you look at the lore or something like that, or like some other games, they were mentioned before. There's no siren in pre-sequel, and then So yeah. So like going into story from that, I'm thinking I have the trailer pulled up on the stream just so we can see like frame by frame. The main antagonists were first shown in the trailer, and the dude has tattoos too, but not to the extent that like we see on normal sirens, right? Where like they have the tattoos on like their arms and it just goes all across their body. She does have this in the trailer on her left arm. So I'm wondering if she's a siren. And of course, I think we're playing as another siren as they're introducing. So I think that's still playing towards, I think they're trying to play towards like a bandit theme and a maybe siren theme, more so than like find magical vaults and stop bad guy like Borderlands 2. And I never really played 1, but that's what 1 was like.
I mean, I feel like that might be the case still, though, because it's like they mentioned like multiple worlds you'll have to be saving, and kind of the whole theme of the ending for the Borderlands 2 is that once you discover that there were other worlds, they're on different planets. So,
right. Do you think that we're gonna travel to other worlds other than Pandora, since that's what they implied kind of at the end?
Definitely, for sure. I mean, I don't think that'll matter too much because it's like. The way that I see it is that in the second game, we were basically on the same planet, just traveling to different locations.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'll just do the same thing, but just make it's not different locations, it's just different planets you're traveling to. Maybe there'll be subsectors of like areas that you can travel to in those worlds, but I mean, other than that, I don't know if it'll really like change other than the fact that it's not location based. It's more
interesting. How do you think they would do this? If you're traveling just like a different, like you just travel to like a continent or just like a certain like mini like city of a world or something like that?
Yeah, because it doesn't seem like. I mean, it'll just get too complicated if they start adding like the amount of locations that like, let's say, what was it, Pandora would have.
Mm-hmm.
Times like how many like planets that they would have for like the third game, that would just get way too complicated. So I mean, that's again why I'm making the case it being different planets. It could just be like 1, 2, or 3 different like locations per that planet. So I mean, again, I'm not sure what they're gonna go for.
And they have had 8 years to work on this, and it's been in development for a minute, so we'll see how long it goes. So yeah, the bad guys, right? What do you think if these two figures, the chick and the dude, we don't know their names at all, are obviously some sort of bad guys, and their plan seems to be, I feel like, starting some sort of like bandit haven, right? What do you think?
I mean, there's always like this cultish theme that was a part of like the siren lore, and that was kind of explored in the second game with the what was it, the cult side mission that you do for the Firehawk field. Like that was just like one hint of like how. Oh no, actually Maya too, her backstory related to her being a part of a cult. Yeah, I mean, again, second game just set up a lot of like potential backstory for the siren lore that could be explored in the universe, and now they're kind of just building upon that now.
And I think the pre-sequel did as well a little bit. Well, it didn't like do that for Sirens though, but it set up more a bigger world for Borderlands other than just Pandora.
Yeah.
Especially like because like 2 and 1, you would not like know that there's people living up on the moon like at all, or well, I guess 2 you knew Hyperion's up there with their giant space, but not, you know, on the moon or anything like that. So moving on, the story is obviously a time skip. We see several characters throughout the trailer aged.
They did that. I mean, they did that for the same case from the first to the second game.
Right.
The whole big twist for not twist, but the whole setup for the second game was that after you defeat the vault creature.
Do you know the time skip between the first and the second?
I don't. I do not. It's got to be a significant amount of time because there was enough time for Hyperion to start setting themselves up as a major corporation.
Right.
Also, the vault opened up to the new mineral iridium in the game, which became a currency for players to upgrade their stuff and also trade in for like other items and stuff like that. Basically, it's just another form of currency for the game. And then what else? The home base for the first game was destroyed, and then they shifted over to Sanctuary, New Haven to Sanctuary. So yeah, it's enough time for them to like. Yeah, I wouldn't know.
Do you think the time skip between, I guess, pre-sequel, really, for going, like, story-wise, and Borderlands 3 is a good move, or would you like to see it, like, immediately start after pre-sequel, or something like that?
I think the story needs to develop just because, I mean, the fan base is, like, growing up with this game series as well. Like, again, it's, like...
Mm-hmm.
Again, the time skip is just more realistic to the fact that they've just, like, haven't released a game for 7 years. So, obviously, they want some form of change.
Do you think they use it as some sort of reset for them? For, like, the writing-wise, or developer-wise, I guess? Because I feel like that's kind of how
I don't think they're resetting at all, man, because they're connecting a lot of this with, like, even their Telltale series, Tales from the Borderlands, and with pre-sequel. Like, everything is, like, interwoven and kind of connected with each other, so I don't think they're, like, trying to redo, like, anything in terms of plot-wise. Like, everything seems pretty solid, and just, like, they want a cohesive story where everything they've kind of, like, built up to this has some significance and connects with each other.
Right.
But not enough to the point where it's, like, you need to play these games to understand what's going on. Just knowing that, you know, there's a lineage and this has been developing and the world that they've invested in should show for, you know, one of their biggest games.
Well,
biggest games that's going to come out.
The reason I asked that is just because that's how I felt like what they did with Borderlands 2 and their time skip is they used like Borderlands 2 as a hard reset from Borderlands 1, where we got to see just like they took all the good stuff from Borderlands 1, brought it into Borderlands 2, and then just fixed everything else and built upon that. Because I never played Borderlands 1. I have no incentive to play Borderlands 1 other than I guess.
I feel like you should, because it gives you like a good juxtaposition between the first and second game and just like how far they've come in terms of like developing like the mechanics of the game, the storyline, giving like the characters that you used to play actual characters, actual backstories in the second game.
And now they're doing that again.
Yeah, so it's like, and I enjoy that because you grow up with these characters to like play them, and it's nice to see like, you know, they're actually being characters of a story, and you can like get to know them a little bit better in that sense. But yeah, I mean, as you know, I've been playing the first game recently, and it's just weird because like those issues are more apparent. What's the word? Those issues are more visible in the first game in terms of like what they need to fix for the second game. But for the second game, it's like it seems like fine enough as is. Like they kind of nailed it in terms of.
Well, they also put on like a lot of work in that game with the DLCs as well.
Exactly. So it's like. I feel like people shouldn't be disappointed if nothing changes for that. because like I think again it kind of relies on just how good the story plays out.
Right.
And that's the one thing people get most invested in.
So
yeah, it's just crazy, like the amount of character growth that they have. Even in the second game, like after I know, like the 50th like run through, we don't give a shit about like Mordecai's Bloodwing dying, but like the first time you play through that, you feel for the guy kind of, because again, you played these characters, and to see them like get killed off in such a vicious kind of way.
So we're obviously playing as 4 new characters. One being a siren. I believe parts of their abilities are shown in the trailer. The siren one being seem to be like a muscle theme, where it reminds me of these characters, right? So just seeing them, because I have them lined up on stream from the video, is they remind me a mixture of like they took each 4 playable characters from each of the 3 games and they kind of combined them, is what it just seems like to me. Because like if there's the part with the siren, and she has her muscly spirit arms, right?
Well, okay. Well, the 4 base like classes that they always usually have for the games are sirens, assassins, soldiers, and then the bruisers, which is basically Brick Gunzerker, and then Mordecai, and wait, no, hold on. What was it? It was for the hold on. Mordecai, and then what was the other guy's name? The commando? Axton, that's right.
Yeah.
And then assassins obviously being oh no, wait, it was Roland and then Axton, there we go. And then Mordecai in Zero. And then finally who was it? Lilith and then Maya.
And then pre-sequel was different.
Yeah, I like what they're doing with Bruisers because
it seems like
again, as you're saying, it's a mix of like Bruiser and Soldier, sort of.
Well, I think that it's Bruiser, and Oz, we don't know her power, I guess, other than the one dude with the mech.
It's her mech.
No, that's the other chick. I'm talking about the siren chick who has like all the strong arm.
No, the siren chick.
She seems to be a mix of like Brick, it's like original power, where he just punches the shit out of everything. And like some sort of siren ability, right? Or maybe she gets these arms and she just punches shit yeah, I don't know what her abilities are specifically gonna do, but just based on the trailer, it seems like her elemental focus will be electricity as opposed to corrosive and fire. Right.
Which is something that I like, because I feel like, again, there's certain like elemental classes that do better than others. I mean, top tier being obviously Slag. But yeah, it's nice to see that she's kind of getting a change, because it still was like fire based kind of for both the first and second game, and the fact that kind of steering away from that is hopefully will be a good thing.
Right.
So for her, and then the assassin, he from the leaked information that I was told, he's like controls animals like stags.
Yeah, I remember they leaked something like a while back. I forget it though.
Yeah. I wonder what his like. Yeah, I'm trying to think, because that's like, I guess, a combination of
it's just
Gage and Mordecai with like what was it? What was her mech's name?
I forget the actual name of the mech, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, and then Bloodwing, and he gets 3 apparently, so.
I think, like, what they need to be the most careful on is, creating, I think they need, first off, like I said it before when we were talking about this earlier, they need to simplify skill trees, I feel like, or they either need to focus on the skill tree simplify, like that part of building your character, or the loot part of building your character. I think they need to work on both of those compared to 2.
Well, to be fair, I feel like the development for the skill tree from the first to the second game was needed, just because, yeah, from the first game, this is like I'm looking at the skill tree right now for Lilith, and like it's way too simple. Like it doesn't like allow for the diversity of like gameplay that the second game has in terms of like what you can do with your skills.
Right.
For example, like if you go into Maya's first skill tree instead of like her third, which basically does more elemental damage,
I think
you basically mind control like your enemies, and so it kind of sets you up for like different ways that you want to like play the game. But yeah, I feel like
what I'm saying
maybe
is
not
like
simplify, but
more direction is what I'm trying to say. Because there got to a point in Borderlands 2, especially like when you're max level, where you're just like, okay, I need the most efficient build to deal with all this shit. And there's just all these skill trees, and a lot of them just felt kind of useless. Like a lot of the skill trees were passives, and that's cool, but the problem with that is you don't feel stronger unless the passives like fucking bust it, compared to like
the corrosive kill cloud.
Yeah, compared to like when you get that, yeah.
I mean not Lilith, Maya, and then the what was it? The double gun Zerk with the empty rocket launcher for the extra damage. What was that one? Mayhem or something.
Yeah, but that was, if you're thinking of the bug, then that's different. But like things like that, where like a lot of the passives just felt useless, and then like in Borderlands 2 especially, like a lot of those passives don't matter if your badass rank is just, you know, ridiculous.
Yeah, they changed that from the first to the second game. In the first game, it was weapon proficiencies, and basically, the more you use a certain type of weapon, the more buffs you got with it, right? But in the second game, obviously, it was the challenges that you had to complete, and the more challenges you gained, the more badass tokens you could get, and then you invested those into the individual like aspects that you wanted to. For example, gun damage, shield recharge rate,
interesting,
accuracy, stuff like that.
Yeah. If they fixed the direction of that, and then with building a character, I felt like guns always felt relevant. You know, you could tell the difference between of course, you could tell the difference between like a shitty gun and a good gun in Borderlands, right? But when it comes to grenade mods and those like fucking special class items, unless they're like legendary, I felt like they were useless. I barely use those in 2.
Well, see, that's why I feel like Borderlands 2 doesn't get the appreciation that it does. And why I feel like it should hold up as a game of its time now. Like, I get what you're saying, but there were like small aspects in the game that like change those kinds of mechanics. Again, for example, those gun parts that come with the different weapons that you get through the story. Certain weapons that you get from specific characters, especially Moxie, she gives you most of the health regen guns, which help you for like tanking and basically getting that health back.
But those are that's what I was saying. Like those are the mechanics of the guns, right? Like the grog nozzle, right? Yeah. That's the gun, and you feel that. But there's no, unless it's a legendary class item, you're not feeling like the effects of those so much. Or like the grenades, really. The grenades are cool, but unless it's like I'm pretty sure like the best end game grenade in Borderlands 2 is like the suction cup, like it depends on class obviously and what you're going for, but like any grenade that like bounces all the fuck around, just slags the enemies, were like, you know, the best grenades because you just use them to slag shit.
The top tier best ones all around is the fastball, which is the one that you throw basically like as baseball. But yeah, I understand what you're saying, like and that's why I feel like with these new like gun aesthetics that they're adding, that'll become more of like an interest with like those aspects as opposed to like the guns themselves, hopefully.
Right.
And that way it'll be less about like, oh, I have to find this specific, and like actually finding more appreciation for like um I guess for the looting system in that case.
Um, do you? So let's move on to guns. Actually, since we're on that topic,
Okay.
uh, in the trailer they say 1 billion guns. Of course, we know that.
I mean, they said 67 bazillion.
Yeah. Yes. Of course, we know that that's just like the same gun with like randomized on it.
Different attachments, yeah, and stuff like
Do
that.
you want to see more of that, or would you like them to like minimize that aspect somehow, or again with the direction where it give you more direction on like the type of attachments and stuff? Because in Borderlands 2 there are like certain like gun stocks and sights that are just completely randomized that you would not know anything about unless you look into it.
Yeah, that's why, again, why I enjoy that they're making them a little more distinct in the third game so that people can pay attention to those kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, what they want from like the weapons that they're getting.
Yeah, like
I think a part of why people get detracted from wanting to play Borderlands 2 is also from that reason. There's so many guns, you don't know what to use. There's obviously good ones, but you just don't know where to find them.
right.
And there's just that time you would have to invest in time in terms of like researching like where those are, looking up guides, just playing the game itself, and then like exploring the maps and seeing like if there's any secret like areas for weapons, and looking for specific enemies that have like specific like gun drops, or just doing looting in general. Um,
And this game has a lot of competition now than like when Borderlands 2 released, because now we live in a world with Destiny and Anthem and Division 2, so there's a lot of looter shooters out there.
yeah,
So like,
but it's the thing is with Borderlands, it kind of sets the staple for it, and it's the I feel like one of the best like shooter looters out there.
oh yeah, I think it's the best. I think a lot of people went to play Destiny because of how similar it was to Borderlands.
I think the only problem is just like how much hype it goes. Oh, I'm getting distracted from the guns. Anyway, just one quick thought. Like, just people are expecting it to live up to the hype, and if it becomes just like the same game to them from like, let's say the experience from switching from Borderlands 2 to the pre-sequel was basically the same game, and it should have been DLC, but because it was called a separate game, it just made it into a big problem.
Right.
I have no worries, though. I feel like they've developed enough, and it's showing enough in the trailer for me to be reassured. Like their first teaser, I was a little worried because it didn't really show much, but now actually seeing some gameplay in this actual trailer and announcement, I'm a little bit reassured, and I'm more hopeful about the game coming out. But anyway, guns, yeah. If they made it, here's what I'll say: if they made it simple like in the first game, and then added the mechanics and everything they did from the second, I feel like that would be a perfect balance.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the first game, I feel like there's less emphasis of like, oh my gosh, we have to give you all these different types of weapons each mission, blah blah blah, and it's all just garbage and shit.
Right.
But in the first game, that only happens so rarely when you actually like get a weapon or gear drop from like specific missions, and those are like at the stepping stone chapters of when you're progressing through the story, right?
Right.
Like you get to the point where like, okay, you're about to go to a new area. We'll give you like a new weapon so that you can face those enemies there. It kind of makes it fair and appropriate for those kinds of settings, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think just for the reward system for the third game, they should be a little bit careful and make it more worthwhile in terms of, I think that's the thing. It needs to be more worthwhile, both for like the missions that they're doing and for the loot that they get in the end. Because it just seems like for the most part, it was just green loot. And then like occasional blue loot that had like a unique loot that had like special stats.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, those rare missions where you actually get like useful loot, again from like Moxie or Lilith. or Marcus and stuff like that.
Right. So let's move on to predictions because we're over time, but that's fine.
Okay.
What would you like to see from Borderlands? Just go crazy.
I want more development on movement skills. I feel like that was something that kind of was like a thing in the second game with like what's his name, Zero and his dash ability.
Uh-huh.
But again, it just didn't seem like something that would like last for endgame.
Right. Well, it seems like they are like, adding a lot more vehicles to the game. So
Oh yeah, no,
did
they
you
look
say you
awesome.
want
Like the
like
one wheeler that they have too, that looks cool.
you say you want like movement abilities, so would you like to see like Lilith's ability in Borderlands 1 where she just like became the Flash and just ran the fuck around and killed everything?
Well, maybe not that, but just like I don't know. It just seems like there's a lot of walking in the game when you're getting to specific stages and stuff like that.
Uh-huh.
It just would be nice to like fill those like gaps of like inaction with actually something that would be worthwhile. For example, like again dashes or like even like sliding. Even that'd be cool.
Hmm.
Which it kind of seemed like one of the characters was doing in the trailer, but I'm not sure. Let's see. Movement speed. I mean, movement skills. They're making changes to guns, obviously, so that's fine. For the mech, though, if like again with those movement abilities, if you could like fly for a little bit, that'd be kind of cool. Let's see. Oh, a new element, hopefully.
I'm sure they're gonna have a new element. I wouldn't be surprised if they added like brought ice back from
Like the
pre-sequel.
fire was cool in pre-sequel,
Yeah.
and that was like one of the reasons I would play that game, because like it didn't have that great of a storyline, and it wasn't released kind of as a DLC of its own, and just a game. It's another reason that can be covered in another video.
I think what I would like the most is replayability. Borderlands 2 had so much replayability. They added more with the more levels you get. They added more with the DLC, and they had it, and that was probably my favorite part, is that I could play the game a million fucking times and it's still entertaining. That needs to be there, otherwise I don't think this game works at all.
Yeah.
Like the pre-sequel, for example, didn't have that, so it didn't, work at all, so to speak. Like the pre-sequel had, yeah, you can replay it a couple times. I did replay it a couple times, but that was a cash grab. It was lazily done. I would like to see again more direction with like weapons and skills. A lot of post-game content. I think that's one of the best parts of Borderlands 2, was that like no matter which DLC you completed or whether you complete the actual game, you had post-game content to actually go back and do, or to look forward to. And then lastly, I guess the writing. I just want the story, to be as funny and as wacky and as unexpected as possible. I'm not scared.
No, I'm not as scared as I was before about the game release now after seeing the trailer.
Yeah.
Like it looks very promising. Like they've improved the aesthetics, they've improved I think like the way the guns work and the way that they look. I think they're being more explorative in terms of like the planets that they're gonna go look after. One of them looked like a cyberpunk kind of city, which I'm a little excited for, because again, I'm kind of a niche for cyberpunk, so I'm glad that they have that kind of diversity there too. I don't know anything about story, but that's fine. I think that's just something to discover for the game itself, and something that doesn't need to be.
I think like the only the only thing I would be like worried about is that like a lot of games now, especially like Square Enix, for instance, has just had games where like Final Fantasy 15, for example, took 10 years to come out. Kingdom Hearts took 13 to come out. So when you get to these like double-digit years for game releases, it just like I get worried where people didn't like Final Fantasy 15. I liked it. Kingdom Hearts 3 was underwhelming. So it just gets to a certain point. It's like a certain point where there's too much hype for it, and then it's a letdown, so to speak, or something like that. So
I have no worries about this game, though. I feel like when it comes out, it'll be.
I think like my last and biggest question will be like, do you think that with Borderlands 3, because there's still no announcement date for it, I don't know how super far in development they are with it, but with Borderlands 3, do you think that they'll be playing it safe, as in like sticking with like what Borderlands 2 had, or playing it kind of out of the box and wacky and rechanging a lot of things with what they did with like Borderlands 2 versus Borderlands 1?
I think they need to do. I mean, I'm gonna say the latter, just because I think they need to do that. Because the perfect example of like playing it safe was the pre-sequel, and they saw that it didn't do as well as their second game. So, and again, there was that potential for it being a good game, especially with its movement of like the zero G, the cryo, the different characters that they had. Even what's her name, Nisha, the sheriff, like she wasn't even that bad of a character in terms of like gameplay. It's just, again, the story wasn't well developed, and it didn't seem like there was enough of it. There wasn't enough change for it to stand as its own game again as a DLC. So again, in order for it to not pass as another pre-sequel or just like extra DLC, they need to be able to make those risks and changes, but not go too far over to the point where like it's just unnecessary. Like they're making these risks in order to solve a problem that they see in like their previous games that they want to try and develop now for the third one.
Right. I completely agree. I would like them, I think in today's world, especially with like all the layoffs happening right now, a lot of games are playing it safe, and I think especially Borderlands, with like how wacky and crazy its writing is, it can't play safe, and it needs to definitely take the ladder from Borderlands 2.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for coming on this week's show, TJ.
No, always a pleasure.
That concludes this week's show. All of our past episodes are up on YouTube. Follow us on social media. Check out the website. Check out the Twitch stream. We do it live every week at around 7 Central Standard Time. Check out SoundCloud. We're on SoundCloud. We're on iTunes. We're on Spotify. We're on Google Podcasts. Thank you for listening, and I hope you guys are just excited for Borderlands 3 as we are. Have a wonderful day.